So welcome and thank you for joining us for episode 9 of the GSS Jamaica Industry Hour podcast. I'm Conrad Robinson, Manager of Global Digital Services at Jamaica Promotion Corporation, JAMPRO. Today, we will be focusing on the topic, Jamaica to the World, exploring the outsourcing hub of the Caribbean. We'll dive in and have a candid discussion about Jamaica's ability and capacity to compete on a global scale to offer outsourcing and global digital services. Joining me in this discussion today are my special guests, Shulette Cox, President of JAMPRO, and Anand Birdar, President of the Global Services Association of Jamaica. But before we get into the discussions, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to give further introductions to my special guests today. Shulette Cox was appointed president of JAMPRO on February 13, 2023. She is passionate about supporting the growth of local companies through increased exports and investment that can positively impact the economy, which is underpinned by strategic interventions by government that makes it easier to do business in Jamaica. In this vein, throughout her tenure at JAMPRO, she has helped to drive the execution of numerous government reforms that have led to an increase in Jamaica's global ranking on the Doing Business report, including reforms that move Jamaica from 21 in the starting a business to number 6 in the world. In her previous capacity as vice president of JAMPRO, she supported the operationalization of various investment projects in Jamaica and had oversight of national development programs, including the National Competitive Council, NCC, the National Investment Policy, NIP, and the Jamaica Business Gateway, JBG. Welcome, Shulette. It's great to have you.
Hi.
Also, thanks, Shulette. Also, allow me to introduce Mr. Anand Birdar, who is a Harvard Business School alumnus and an accomplished global executive in the technology, customer experience, and healthcare business process management industry, with 2 decades of expertise in strategy design and execution, business development and expansion, organizational development, leadership, and management. A deeper understanding of strategy and execution, people power, and technology evolution has enabled him to build sustainable businesses and forge meaningful partnerships to scale them globally. Anand was also elected as president of the Global Services Association, formerly BPIAJ, in June 2022, and currently serves on the Global Services Skill Council. He has worked at AGS Healthcare, formerly HGS, and in various capacities, including vice president, country head for Jamaica, and now serves as the senior vice president and head of Latin America and the Caribbean. Welcome, Anand. It's great to have you. Great to have you both.
Thanks, Conrad. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. But I want to kind of, give the context for our discussion today by giving us a little background to the outsourcing industry in Jamaica. So Jamaica's outsourcing and GDS sector has seen significant growth over the past decade or so. In 2012, the sector had about 40 companies employing approximately 12,000 workers. Fast forward to today, the sector is represented by some 80 plus companies employing upwards of 65,000 people, servicing multiple industries to include telecoms, banking, insurance, hospitality, and healthcare, contributing approximately 900 million USD to the Jamaican economy annually. Having enjoyed that kind of success in the outsourcing space, Jamaica is now positioning herself to build on that success by outsourcing, focusing on the higher value segment of the market, which includes KPO, which is knowledge process outsourcing, ITO, which is information technology outsourcing, finance and accounting, etc. All of this has led to Jamaica hosting, through JAMPRO, and successfully so, I may add, outsourced to LAC at the Montego Bay Convention Center, June 14 to 15, 2023. This event was dubbed as the largest gathering of knowledge service buyers and suppliers in Latin America and the Caribbean. We had well over 550 participants and upwards of 900 B2B meetings held. It is within this context that I would like to ask President Cox to tell us a little bit more about what it is that Jamaica and Jamaica in particular is doing. So Jamaica continues to evolve in the outsourcing space, and Jamaica continues to advance Jamaica's outsourcing and global services industry. So should I tell us about some of the strategies and programs that have been put in place to ensure Jamaica remains competitive at a global level and fosters investments in the sector?
All right, thank you, Conrad, and thank you for that introduction, because for us, we really do see the global digital services industry and outsourcing as a very big part of how to keep Jamaicans employed in quality jobs. And so over the past few years, Jamaica has been very deliberate in how it has developed strategies and implemented those strategies to position Jamaica. And the biggest part of that has been our work that we've done through the Global Digital Services Sector Project, which is a $15 million IDB loan project that is currently in its last.
Yes.
Some of the things that we have done deliberately is, first and foremost, we see Jamaica as a product, and a big part of the Jamaican product are the Jamaican people. And with any other product, you have to
Yes.
invest in the people in order to make it better every single day. And so there's a deliberate program of skills development that is led by the industry. So we engage with the industry via the Global Services Skills Council to understand what the needs of the industry are. And then we train people along those lines. And that is a program that has been going on now for a couple of years. It's been doing very well, and it's been feeding into the industry. When we started that program in 2018, 2019, we wouldn't have even gotten to 40,000 jobs as yet. And as you said, today we're upwards of 60,000 jobs. So skills development would be number one. Number two is making sure that we have the right ecosystem. And that comprises a couple of things. We have to make sure that we have the right legislative framework. So Jamaica put in place a special economic zone regime a couple of years ago, which is the regime that most outsourcing companies can access incentives. And that has been going very well. It's very focused. There's an entity of government that is focused on facilitating SEZs. We are actually working with that entity now to put their processes online, because one of the things that we know is that digital services from government is essential to competitiveness. And then there's legislation. Jamaica in 2020, we passed the Data Protection Act, which is very important to this industry for clients of the outsourcing industry to understand that the government at the highest level is protecting their information. And so that act was passed and becomes operationalized at the end of this year to protect client data. Other things that we're doing are really around engaging public and private sector in a partnership, and really employing some level of flexibility to understand what are the changing demands of this industry and what can the government of Jamaica do to facilitate. So, for example, one of the newest policy changes that we've made is to facilitate work from home under the SEZ regime. And that came out a lot during COVID as an opportunity for more people across Jamaica to be employed in the industry. And that has now been agreed and is a policy of government and is to be put in legislation shortly. And then I think we can wrap up all of that with what Jampro does in terms of promotion, because we could be the best product in the world. If you're not promoting it, if you're not marketing it to the right people, then you're just a secret in a box and nobody knows and the industry doesn't grow. And for Jampro, we promote the industry on two levels. We promote it as an investment industry. So companies like Sagility, where Anand is, we would attract companies like those into Jamaica to make them know that this is a space that they can operate from. But we also promote the industry as an export of services. So once a company is here, Jampro works with them closely to get contracts with new clients. And that is a cycle that continuously moves to push more people in the industry. And as we push towards more IT outsourcing, going beyond business process outsourcing, you can imagine that promotion and messaging of what Jamaica has to offer becomes that's much more important.
Right, cool. Right, thanks. So if I'm hearing you correctly, Shulette, so we're leveraging brand Jamaica, we're upskilling our workforce, yes, and through JSAs, we're offering the incentives. There's also the legislative process that we're making sure supports the sector, and of course our partnership with the private sector as well, and making sure that we are promoting Jamaica not just as an investment destination, but an export of services. So,
Exactly.
and over to you now, in terms of the perspective from the association, the industry perspective, what is the expected growth prospect for Jamaica's global digital services sector? And what segments will we see some level of maturity in? And how do you see Jamaica advancing over the next 5 to 10 years?
Great. Yeah, thanks, Conrad. So before I respond, just to for the record, Global Services Association of Jamaica is it's a purpose. It's a group of companies who are member part of the association. We're essentially here to work with government stakeholders, etc., to make the business environment easier and fuel the growth. And the support from Jampro and other government entities has been fantastic. It's played a pivotal role in the last 5 years of growth. So, having said that, there are global shifts that results in what happens in nearshore and consequently what happens in Jamaica. So if you go back 5, 7 years ago, Philippines then, now, and probably for the near future, the largest outsourcer of global digital services, surpassed India in 2010. However, in 2015, 2016, the hit influx where people started looking at mitigating some risk, so to say, and the political climate at that time wasn't in favor of Philippines. So, coupled with these two reasons, with a lot of clients wanting to de-risk or not put all eggs in one basket, nearshore became a very compelling value proposition. Although nearshore existed for a while, it really took steam in the last 7 years, 8 years. And within the nearshore space, Jamaica stands out as the most favorable destination for, especially if the work requires a good level of intellectual capacity, a great communication skill. I think Jamaica clearly stands out as a standout choice. And bolstered by the government support here, it's been fantastic, right? Now, having said that, Philippines is now back on the growth path, right? Because they're huge. There are 100 million people. There are multiple tiers of service and city. So they're back on the growth path. Overall, globally, the industry grows at about 6 to 7%, and it's still been growing irrespective of AI, irrespective of technology, irrespective of automation. The growth continues. Now, Jamaica has been growing at 20 to 25% growth rate, almost 4 times the industry. That's a phenomenal growth rate for Jamaica for the last 5 years. And I expect going forward, considering the economic conditions, considering the global factors, I expect Jamaica to continue a double-digit growth rate, probably in the high to mid-teens will be the growth rate. And as we step into the next 3, 5, and 10 years, the way we see growth will get redefined in Jamaica. It's not about quantitative growth alone, which has been the story for the last 7 years, But now on is the journey of Jamaica to move into qualitative growth, right? While you're adding numbers, the quality of jobs are going to go up. The income that people make by doing the jobs are going to go up, which is absolutely aligned with the country's agenda and the investments that the country is
Yes.
making. And within
Mhm.
those high value services, you could look at um, ITO, I think will be the big piece of it. Um, Development, especially using all the tools, full stack developers, the IT environment, and it plays an important role in the long term because it also pushes the entrepreneurship at the same time, which is also great for Jamaica. And outside of that, within the healthcare space, there are a couple of opportunities which I especially focus in. HRO space, there are opportunities. FNA, I think Jamaica does decently well already. That can further
Yeah.
expand. So there are multiple avenues where Jamaica will continue to expand and move up the value chain.
Yeah. And thank you very much, Anand, for that. And I agree with you 100%. I think that Jamaica will continue to grow within this sector. Right now, as you mentioned earlier, herself to outsource. And, ITO is an area which I think that we really do have significant competitive advantage. Just recently coming back from an event overseas, and the demand for, ITO services is unbelievable. I mean, it seems to me like the entire outsourcing world seems to be focusing on IT and IT support types services. So, of course, there is a global shift, and of course, we also have to shift with that as well here in Jamaica. But just listening to you, it seems to me like our value proposition going forward may mean some refining to be in keeping with what we're doing now, outsourcing as a country. But not only that, you mentioned the fact that government support is there, and of course, organizations like JAMPRO and so on is really helping to push the sector forward. I think what we have done in the space was recognized. Certainly, it was recognized by IDB, and part of the reason why Jamaica was asked to host outsource to LAC. And so, Shulette,
Right.
hosting outsource to LAC here in Jamaica was a big moment and a big win in
That's a
showcasing
testament,
Jamaica's
I would say.
readiness to the world. What were the three big wins for Jamaica you could highlight and attribute to the Outsource to LAC conference?
All right, it was indeed a big win for us to be able to host that event, and that was negotiated as a part of that loan project that I mentioned earlier, the global digital services sector project. Um, I think first of all, you have to put it in context. This was the ninth staging of that event, and the very first time, even though it says outsourced to Latin America and the Caribbean, it was the very first time it was hosted in a Caribbean country. So that was an
Yes.
achievement in and of itself. And outside of the US, the very first time in an English speaking country. So when you start to think about that kind of recognition and that kind of decision that was taken to put the event here, you start to see that the IDB really did, in fact, see the potential in Jamaica to be able to grant us the ability to host. For us, the
Mhm.
first and biggest thing was to announce Jamaica as a destination for global digital services. A lot of countries, particularly in the Latin American region, didn't recognize that Jamaica is a player in this space. And so,
Absolutely,
by
yes.
virtue of us even getting to host it, we were immediately recognized as a player on this stage that has been going on for years. And then I think the other big things for us coming out of it was exposure, and exposure on two sides. We had our technology accelerator project on show at the outsourced to LAC, and our
Yes.
technology accelerator project are 16 companies in the tech space in Jamaica that we've identified and are working with to increase export of services. And we had people going through that area of the exhibition hall and saying they never knew that Jamaica could do cybersecurity. They never knew that Jamaica could do app development or is doing it. And we're not doing it only for Jamaican companies, we're doing it for companies in the US, in Canada, in Europe. And so that exposure to 600 people that were in attendance and the many other people that were streaming started to send a message, not just that Jamaica is in the global digital services space, but we're in the higher end of this space, the entire
Yeah.
spectrum. It also was important for Jamaican companies to see what businesses look like in the region and how they work
Mhm.
and some of what they're doing. So the panels were carefully curated. We had panels that were looking at gaming, fintech, ag tech, some of the new spaces for digital services that Jamaica has quietly started to do, but not broken into as yet. And we were able to get a glimpse of that firsthand and to hear from some of the players in the region as to some of the things they've encountered, some of the lessons they've learned, and some of the pitfalls that we can now avoid. And that was important for our local industry players to understand and learn and hopefully make some partnerships as well. So that as we step out into that space, we're not stepping out by
Mhm.
ourselves, but we're stepping out with partners that have more experience. And so, all in all, I think what Outsource to LAC did for us as an industry in Jamaica is kick it up another level to make sure that we understand where we are in the space and where we can get to.
Yeah, Shalette, I have to agree. I mean, just being at the event myself and just listening to some of the feedback coming from the participants, I'm hearing things like, boy, this is one of the best outsourced to LAC we have been to. I mean, the content was rich. I think the panels, as you've mentioned, the speakers, everything just seemed to work and work very well. And Jamaica was indeed on display, and I think we got a bounce from that when we went overseas just immediately after outsourced the LAC, and we were set up in Las Vegas and in Toronto. And people came up to us to the booth, and they were like, "Wow, we didn't even know Jamaica was involved in the tech space." Brand Jamaica is really big. So I was saying that, boy, listen, I mean, just based on the discussions coming out of outsourced the LAC, and the fact that the comments that I was receiving was that this is one of the best outsourced to LAC that they have gone to. The content was rich, the speakers, they were great. And I think that we got some bones out of it, when we went abroad to LA and I'm sorry, to Las Vegas and to Toronto. And brand Jamaica went up. Once we put up that booth that says Jamaica upsourcing, people came over in droves, and everybody was interested to find out what we're doing in that IT space here in Jamaica. So I agree with you. I think that there's a lot of opportunities there for us to exploit as a country. And having said that, I'm really going to ask Anna now. He was a speaker at Outsource to LAC, and for you, what were some of the main takeaways for you?
I think I see this as I'll try to put it in threefold, right? One, I think it's a testament of the potential in Jamaica. I think because we work in close circles, whether it's Gillette, me, or a few others, we can see the talent very visibly, right? It may not be very
Mhm.
obvious to a lot of people in Jamaica, the talent, the quality of talent we have here, which can evolve faster and move faster with change. To me, I see Outsourced to LAC event as a testament of the fact that outsiders can see it, probably a lot more, which is great, and the fact that
Mhm.
the way we have grown in the last 7 years is not a outcome of being in the right place at the right time. It's an outcome of a deliberate effort from the government.
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
outcome of very deliberate
Yeah,
planning
yeah.
in using the funds of IDB, very deliberate effort in getting the industry together. GSAJ was at the middle of everything. So the collaboration style, and the way we went about is the reason. And I see LAC as a culmination of one of that. And like Shilette said, it also just gives us the impetus we need to move into the next gear, right? And it's the advantage Jamaica will have go forward because of the LAC event is also the fact that, more than many, whether it is Hard Trust, now with the new minister Dixon getting appointed to drive the skills development and digital transformation. These are significant moves made by the government, right? And the timing is perfect. And moving forward, technology, it was always an optional career. Today, marketing, HR, operations, strategy, nothing exists without technology. Technology is horizontal, it cuts across every single vertical. So, embracing more and more of tech um, in college, in school, and in jobs, I think Jamaica is very well prepared to not just get to the level of
Hmm.
other LATAM countries, but to just like what we've done in the global services sector. We started competing, and it took us like 7 8 years to be number one. Right? It's going to happen in the IT space too, and with more and more tech, I think Jamaica also has the advantage of having a nice touch, right? You don't want to go all tech and no touch. I
Mm.
think that's a very unique advantage we have. Uh, the outsourced to LSC event, the staging, the content, it's just the timing was perfect. I think Jamaica earned it. Jampro earned it to host it. So that's how I see it.
No,
If I could
absolutely.
just
And
jump
and
in,
and
if I
sure, go
could
ahead,
just jump
Shalette.
in with one thing, Conrad, because as Anand was speaking, it came to mind as well. Um, Outsourced LAC would have happened maybe about 2 or 3 weeks after the Prime Minister announced this new Minister for
Yes,
Skills Development and Digital
yes.
Transformation. And we were able to have her at the conference with us. And she actually spoke on a panel. But the exposure that she coming into this position got over that 2.5 days, the people that she met across the region
Yes.
and was able to network with and make connections with, I think and I feel had will also give us a little bit of a step up in the job that she has been tasked to do, because she was able to learn so much in just a few weeks into the job, just because of the exposure that and the wealth of knowledge that was just swirling around at the conference.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And both yourself and Anand, you're correct. I mean, I had a recent discussion with somebody from another Caribbean island, and they wanted to find out how they can link with the GDS sector here in Jamaica. When I asked the question, why would you want to do that? He said to me, Jamaica is the leader in this space in the Caribbean, and we want to be a part of what is going on
Mhm.
in Jamaica. So you're right. I think the exposure that event gave us is really telling and really positioning us to take advantage of the many opportunities that are out there for us as a country. And that leaves me to ask this question, and both yourself and Anand can chime in here. Jamaica is a very small in comparison to some of the location and countries represented at the event recently. That is the outsourced the LAC event. What would you consider to be any challenges, roadblocks that could possibly inhibit Jamaica's success in accessing the myriads of emerging opportunities globally? And just in the interest of time, just one or two perhaps roadblocks that you see that could inhibit Jamaica's success in accessing the opportunities that the sector provides.
I would say first and foremost timeliness of execution. I think we have a good plan. I think we know what needs to be done, and I think we have the foundational pieces of our roadmap to get to where we want to get to. But
Hmm.
we need to do it quickly, and we need to move quickly if we want to maintain a competitive advantage. We often have very good plans in Jamaica, and it's all comes down to how quickly we can get it done to make sure that we stay ahead of the pack. But I think we have the pieces in place. We have a minister that is focused on skills, that is focused on transformation. We have government entities that have that as a part of their mandate. We have a private sector partner that is very passionate. So I think we have all the right elements, and I think we have the will to get it done. I think we just need to put in the effort and get it done quickly.
All right, great. And any thoughts?
I'll make a couple of comments and then answer. It's a very, very important question, a question that we need to really go deeper into to better execute. So if you look at the economy sizes and the countries that have gone through what Jamaica is going through, and you could take large size, mid size, or the size of Jamaica as an example. At this point, they either go the way Jamaica intends to go, or the other way, where I don't want to name the countries, where the growth stalls, the moving up the value chain does not happen, and eventually you fall off the radar, right? And it's a less likely scenario for Jamaica because of the planning, preparation, and the sheer intellectual capacity we have in Jamaica, in the management team, in the government, and the resource alignment accordingly. However, even with that said, everything is always competitive, right? In the interest of Jamaican economy, whether it's growth of GDP per capita, general lifestyle of people going up, the work that most Jamaicans do, and the productivity, right, has to go up with time. The value creation for every hour of working, if it goes up with time, it results in better life, better ecosystem for everybody, which everybody wants. Now, while that happens, we want more and more people to earn more and more money, be economically more and more empowered, and at the same time be competitive, right? Which means you give more for less. That's from, if you look at it from the eyes of a buyer, right? They want the country which gives them or exceeds their expectation at the lowest cost possible, right? Now, how do you achieve these seemingly contradicting, but it's achievable? So one is wider, deeper scale development of talent, which aligns with the decision of having the minister appointed for digital skills transformation, and the phase 2 plan that we have in terms of just building that labor pool, so that the cycle of amazing story to saturated talent. I can tell you there are LATAM countries who have gone through this cycle in less than 24 months. From let's go outsource here to they ran out of talent already, right? So that's one potential pitfall, for which I think there is the solution, but as Sheila said, you got to really execute well. Second is, for that to continue to happen, in general, the non-value added cost of living has to go down. When I say that, I mean whether it is, spending more to experience something more is great, right? The spending power of people here in Jamaica needs to go up with high value services. It'll fuel that. But there are other cost infrastructure elements that I think overall as a country, we need to work on cutting it down, right? This could be the cost of infrastructure, the cost of few other things. If not, the journey from we're ready, we're putting effort, resources are aligned, to someone else can give what Jamaica gives at a lower cost can happen quickly, right? If the other cost structure elements, in my view, these are non-value added cost structure elements, which could go down. Simplest example, if I may give, is electricity, right? We need it. We have it. It's reliable. But then whether I pay $10 or $1, the lower I pay, the better I am, right? So that there is more spending power and the money comes into economy. It's a positive flow. There's just one example. There could be more opportunities. So we got to actively solve for that too, because value of any country or any resource is only to what it costs. The more value you create at the lesser the cost, the better. And we want more people to make more money at the same time. So you have
Yeah.
to cut somewhere else and not on people. The mistakes most businesses make is they start cutting on people because it seems like an easy thing to do, which is where I think we will fail
Yeah.
if you're not watchful of that.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And I think both you and Shulet has actually answered the question, very well. I mean, we have all the basic ingredients to make this a successful sector for Jamaica. But of course, there are one or two things that we need to get right. And of course, we need to expand the labor pool and we need to upskill within that in that area. But we also need to ensure that we are targeting the right people to work within the sector. I agree that I think that government need to do some more on the macro side to make the balance between the cost of operating and doing business here a little bit more competitive in relation to the other countries that we're competing against. But I think that progress is being made within that space. And pretty soon, I think that Jamaica will become that ideal destination in the outsourcing sector. And the final question that I have for you, Shulet, is what can we expect from the government of Jamaica, JAMPRO in particular, in terms of the promotion of this sector going forward? Is there anything special that JAMPRO is doing to help to move the sector forward?
I think a lot of what we've done in the past will continue to happen. I think we've found some wins or partnership with the private sector and that continuous dialogue to understand the space and understand what we need to do to remain competitive is going to be critical. That, of course, will lead us to understanding where reforms in government are needed and where we need to make it easier. And as Anand said, a little bit less expensive to do business. That's going to become very important because we're not the only ones that are trying to improve this space. Everybody's doing it. And so we have to continuously do that. I think upskilling of the labor force is going to be critical. We have to turn our attention now to upskilling them on a digital level and ensuring that all our employees of the future are digital ready. And that starts at primary and secondary school levels, not just post-secondary. And I think JAMPRO's role in positioning Jamaica as a higher value outsourcing destination is going to be critical because we are going to have to make people understand that Jamaica is not the Jamaica of yesteryear. It's not the Jamaica of only sun, sand, and sea. It's not the Jamaica of call centers and data entry clerks, but we are a Jamaica that is digitally ready to launch into this industry in a real way. And so it's really just taking some of what we're doing now and making it better and continuously pushing ourselves to understand and change to meet the growing demands of the industry.
Absolutely. And from the industry association perspective, are there anything in the short term to further the growth and expansion of Jamaica's GSS?
So overall, I think as we strengthen there are some low-hanging opportunities that the association is focused on, and very closely will continue to closely work with JAMPRO, GSS, and any other large-scale country transformation projects around the skill and move up the value chain and do justice to upsource Jamaica brand, which I think is fantastic. And also there is a focus on logistics outsourcing. I think that's a big opportunity. As an association, we're looking at driving and helping propel the logistics outsourcing space, which is again a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. And just to recap, I mean, what I'm hearing from this, learning from this discussion, is that we're leveraging Brand Jamaica. We're upskilling our workforce. The incentives are in place. The legislations are in place. We continue to work closely with the private sector, the partnership with the private sector to move the sector forward. the promotional activities continue. And as we say, I mean, you outsource to play, but we are outsourcing to win. And I think that in terms of where we're going as a country, the fact that we are targeting the higher value service categories, it speaks well for our maturing outsourcing sector, and we can build on the success of that going forward. We're wrapping up, Shulet and Anand. I just want to know whether or not you have any final thoughts that you would like to add before we call it a wrap this afternoon.
I guess for me, it would just be to reiterate our commitment to the industry, our commitment to our private sector partners, to creating a space where this industry and the companies in the industry can grow and thrive and hire more people, and the cycle continues. And I think it's important for us to just reiterate that commitment and really start doing the work that it takes to get to where we want to go.
Anand, any final thoughts from you?
I would say as we continue the journey forward, there are countries that have gone through this from a contact center data entry type of into high-end IT, and they've lost the game on both. There are countries who not managed that well. I think we're very conscious of that. We're carefully managing, solve for unemployment and then solve for underemployment as well at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, the next 5-10 years is very critical to support all industries and very deliberately help people move and don't lose the plot. And so this requires, considering the scale and size of Jamaica, and it requires a very agile management team and the government team. And I have full confidence that we have the right people in the right place. And we got to continue to work very, very closely. That's been the main strategic reason for success is the collaboration we have here. And I think that's very important in managing any foreseen or unforeseen risks that may come.
Thank you very much, Shulet Cox, President of JAMPRO, Anand Biradar, President of the Global Services Association of Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, we are inviting you to share the link to our podcast with your family and friends. The link is on all our GSS social media pages. Follow us at Global Services Sector Jamaica on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube at GSS Jamaica, on Instagram at GSS Jamaica 1, on Twitter. Send in your questions or feedback about our podcast to communications_GSS@jamprocorp.com. Let me repeat, communications_GSS@jamprocorp.com. Tell us what topics you would want us to discuss in upcoming podcasts. Thank you, listeners and viewers, for joining us this afternoon. Have a good rest of the afternoon. Thank you all.
Thank you.